I do think sometimes the topic of DEI is slightly overblown, not completely, but very slightly, because I've worked in companies that have DEI, but it's almost seen as like, listen, you go to the airport in America, you got to take off your shoes. No one really believes you have a bomb in your shoes, but it's something that you're supposed to do. All the other people are taking off the shoes. All the companies have some sort of DEI to say like, yeah, we have DEI. Yeah, we're being inclusive. We're always inclusive, but sure, okay, we're being inclusive, but they're not really actionable per se. It's kind of a neutered DEI that exists in some
Mm.
places, especially like smaller corporations. Some of these places are kind of neutered, but a lot of small businesses do not have these things. DEI, from what I can tell, tends to be a larger corporate entity for multiple reasons, but small businesses, which I think I last looked, it's like 45 or 47% of Americans work in small businesses. So for a large amount of people, they may not have this at all. In recent years, since DEI, I've worked in both small and larger, and smaller one had none. No,
Mm.
they have an HR department which tries to be fair just in general, but they didn't have any sort of DEI, and I doubt they would ever do
Mm.
that. But then in the company that was more nationwide, they had DEI, but it's pretty neutered. They had a, I think they had a diverse workforce simply because they were national,
Mm.
and I think that's just more so what they were doing. But I will say this, for all the people that I've dealt with who are, let's say, just non-white, highly competent people. So see, this is the problem. Like it
You,
muddies the
so
waters.
so you see, I've always found at times that the screaming of oh DEI and the others, I think it's also kind of an uncharitable argument. For example,
Mhm.
the Titanic sub that just went under. A lot of people were shouting, "Oh, this is what happens when you do DEI. Oh, DEI." When SVB Bank went under, people were just shouting, "Oh, it was DEI." There's this guy on Twitter that I chat with. Jason is his name, and he kept saying, "Oh, it was." When I pressed him further, I was like, "Okay, so can you give me specific proof? Can you give me the evidence that it was because of the DEI policies that's why this SVB Bank went under? Or are you going to tell me that no banks have ever gone under other circumstances? It's only because of DEI, because they are employing incompetent people. That's why companies go under. Companies can go under for a number of reasons. But ask yourself, conservatives always like saying this when you talk about the gender pay gap. They say, well, if women are being paid less than men, wouldn't companies just hire more women? Right?
Yeah.
It makes business sense. Companies are always business savvy, right? So which company do you think would want to hire incompetent people just for the sake of meeting a DI quota? No company is going to do that because they want to make money. So
Right.
if they're going to be putting such policies in the first place, they are going to be looking for competent people to begin with that meets maybe their criteria of okay, that diversity and all that. So they're still going to be looking for competent people. So the whole DEI is causing things to collapse. I still think it's an uncharitable argument. I think it's an uncharitable
You're
argument.
being nice by saying uncharitable. Uncharitable. I think it's bullshit. We'll just call it. Because I agree with you. There's a lot. There's a quick thing. Like for example, when the Titanic submarine thing started happening, everybody was like, "Oh man, that's crazy," or they might say like, "Why are they going down there anyways?" But then as soon as they saw that, oh, that's why they're saying. Oh, so once you saw that one line that the man said, which by the way, the man that said it was a white man who was in the sub, who's been part of the entire process, and I've watched videos of engineers breaking down exactly why it failed, right? And this man, and I actually saw a screenshot of an email dialogue going back and forth with a engineer who's part of who does like regulatory matters as far as other like submarine type of equipment, and he's telling the man, "Hey, this is going to lead you to trouble." And that man, the white guy, is saying, "I'm tired of people telling me that you're going to get people killed." So
So
I'm
it was
just
his
saying,
hubris.
it's hubris. It had nothing to do with DEI. Everybody was telling him what he should do. Everybody was telling him what he should do. The man was using carbon fiber, which has weaves. He's going to uncharted territories of pressure. And everybody's saying, use steel. What are you doing? Why are you using carbon fiber? They manufactured it in an open plant. That's his decision. The guy wasn't sitting in some office telling other people what to do. He was highly involved in it. He was in it when it was happening. So the whole thing about, oh, this is why, because of one comment that the man made, he was the one who was pulling the strings to everything. He was the one who was making the decisions for everything. He was highly involved in it. So that's why I clearly say that it's bullshit. And it's just another thing to try and get upset about. Listen, I don't like DEI based off of many things, but I also recognize there are degrees to DEI that exist. For the most part, DEI is a way to give mediocre college graduates jobs, to be completely honest with you. You have all these people with degrees who go for social sciences and have nothing to use it for. DEI was a perfect industry to go into, because all you do is push papers around and say how do you measure advancing inclusion? How do you measure that? You can't. It's a never-ending bottomless pit, especially in a large corporation. It's a bottomless pit of money to do trainings and then pay other feeder corporations, other feeder organizations to come in and do trainings. It's all fluff. It's corporate dollar fluff, and it means nothing. So when I hear conservatives talk about DEI this, DEI that, DEI is fluff in companies. When Elon bought Twitter, he got rid of majority of his workforce because it was overinflated anyways, and a lot of that was the DEI crap. Same thing with Facebook. Facebook laid off a bunch of people, many of them part of the DEI department, because it's all useless corporate middle management fluff. So no, people over exaggerate the whole DEI thing. The roots of it and the how it can be used, like those are fair things to challenge, and I do, and I've written about it. But not everything is DEI's fault. Like, it's bullshit. And the last thing I'll say, I know I've been going on, but the last thing I'll say is DEI presents, when people say, oh, because of DEI, they do not realize, or maybe some of them do realize and they just don't care, but they do not realize that it comes off as saying the only reason why there are black faces, brown faces, non-white faces is because of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And that is not the case. And they become suspicious of every black face, or God forbid there's more than one black face that exists on the screen, or exists in a department, or exists at the head of a company. It puts everything into question. So they fall for the very thing, that they say they claim to want to be colorblind, and then they fall for the very thing that the other side accuses them of being, is not colorblind.